The grand hall of the Galactic Council gleamed with polished stone and ancient metals. Light from 3 suns streamed through crystal windows, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Jane Howard stood tall in her navy blue uniform, silver, admiral stars catching the light. Next to her, Frank Collins adjusted his diplomatic sash, trying to hide his nervousness. "Remember," Jane whispered. "No matter what they say, we represent all of Earth." Frank nodded. After 5 years of preparation, humanity's representatives finally stood before the Council, seeking admission to the galactic community. First contact had happened just 7 years ago when alien ships appeared over major cities. They introduced themselves as members of a vast alliance of species spanning thousands of worlds. Earth had worked hard since then to prove itself worthy of joining. The Council speaker, a tall being with grayish skin and 4 arms, raised a hand for silence. His name was Zithrax, from a species called the Vespari. "The Council will now hear the application of planet Earth for associate membership," Zithrax announced. His voice echoed through translation devices around the room. 63 alien representatives from different worlds watched from their seats. Frank stepped forward and bowed. "Esteemed members of the Council, on behalf of Earth, I thank you for this opportunity. Humanity has made great progress in the short time since first contact. We have ended most regional conflicts, developed clean energy, and begun to heal our planet's environment. We are eager to learn from your wisdom and contribute to galactic peace." A murmur spread through the chamber. Jane noticed several Council members leaning toward each other, speaking in low voices. Zithrax tapped a crystal rod against his podium. "Before we proceed, the Council has prepared a review of Earth's history and current status." A large screen appeared in the center of the hall. Images flashed across it: wars, nuclear tests, environmental damage, political conflicts. Jane felt her heart sink as the presentation continued, showing only the worst moments of human history. "As you can see," Zithrax continued, "despite recent progress, humans have demonstrated consistent patterns of aggression, unpredictability, and self-destruction." A blue-skinned Council member stood up. "Their technological development is also concerning. They have advanced from primitive flight to rudimentary space travel in less than 2 centuries. Such rapid progress is unprecedented and dangerous." Another member with features like a large insect added, "They developed nuclear weapons before establishing global unity. No stable species follows such a path." Jane stepped forward. "With respect, every species has a difficult past. We've learned from our mistakes." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Zithrax interrupted. "Your kind fights over resources even when there is enough for all. You divide yourselves by artificial boundaries and beliefs. You are simply too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too dangerous." Frank tried again. "We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves. The Council has heard enough," Zithrax declared. "We will now vote on Earth's application." Jane and Frank watched in dismay as each Council member pressed buttons on their consoles. A holographic display showed the results. 63 red lights. Not a single vote in their favor. "The Council's decision is unanimous," Zithrax announced. "Earth's application for membership is denied. Furthermore, for the safety of galactic civilization, Earth and the Sol system will be placed under quarantine, until such time as humans demonstrate sufficient evolution in their behavior." "Quarantine?" Jane stepped forward. "What does that mean?" A stern-faced Council member explained. "A blockade will be established around your solar system. No ships will be permitted to enter or leave. No communication will be allowed with other worlds. Earth will remain isolated until the Council determines you are ready." Frank's diplomatic training faltered. "You can't do this. You're condemning us without giving us a fair chance." "The decision is final," Zithrax said. "You will be escorted back to your ship and returned to Earth immediately." As guards approached, a small, gray-skinned alien with large eyes moved closer to Jane. She recognized him as Kal, the Arcturian delegate who had seemed sympathetic during pre-hearing meetings. "They fear you not for what you've done," Kal whispered, "but for what you might become." Before Jane could ask what he meant, the guards surrounded them, leading them from the chamber. The journey back to Earth was quiet. Jane spent hours staring at the stars, thinking about the unfairness of it all. Frank reviewed the recordings of the hearing, looking for any legal argument they could use to appeal. "It won't work," Jane finally said. "They've made up their minds." "But why?" Frank asked. "Some of those species have histories just as violent as ours." Carl said they fear what we might become. "I think they see us as competition." When their ship landed at the United Nations Space Center in Geneva, a crowd waited for them. Government leaders, military commanders, and news reporters gathered to hear the Council's decision. President Alice Morgan, a woman with steel-gray hair and unwavering confidence, met them at the landing pad. Her face fell as she saw their expressions. "They rejected us," Frank said simply. The news spread quickly across Earth. That evening, President Morgan addressed the United Nations and the world. "Today we extended our hand in friendship to the galactic community," she said, her voice firm, despite the setback. "They responded with fear and isolation. But I say to you now, the people of Earth will not be defined by others. If they will not have us at their table, we shall build our own." Her words reached across borders and oceans, touching something deep in the human spirit. In Moscow, Beijing, New Delhi, Lagos, Rio de Janeiro, and thousands of other cities, people watched and listened. Old rivalries suddenly seemed small compared to this new challenge. Within days, world leaders began unprecedented cooperation. The United Nations created a new agency called the Ascension Initiative. Its mission was clear: develop technology to bypass the alien blockade and establish humanity's place among the stars, with or without Council approval. Jane Howard was appointed to lead the military division of the initiative. Frank Collins headed diplomatic efforts to learn more about other excluded species who might become allies. 6 months after the rejection, Earth scientists made their first breakthrough. By studying the alien ship that brought Jane and Frank home, they discovered principles of faster-than-light travel different from the Council's methods. "Their technology is advanced," Dr. Olivia Benson explained to Jane during a briefing at the underwater research facility in the Pacific. "But it's also rigid. They follow specific patterns without questioning why. We're approaching the same problems with fresh eyes." Jane looked at the experimental engine designs on the screen. "How long until we have a working prototype?" 5 years, maybe less. We're making progress faster than anyone expected." Jane smiled. "For the first time since returning from Centauri Prime, the Council thinks they've contained us. They don't understand who they're dealing with." That night, Jane stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Each point of light represented possibility, adventure, and now defiance. Earth had been cast out, but that was just the beginning of the story. 10 years passed since Earth's rejection by the Galactic Council. What had begun as defiance had transformed into incredible progress. The people of Earth worked together in ways they never had before. Old enemies became partners, rival nations pooled their resources. Scientists shared discoveries freely. Captain Sam Green stood on the bridge of the Earth space vessel Pathfinder, humanity's first true starship. Through the large forward window, he watched engineers in spacesuits making final adjustments to the hull. The ship wasn't pretty. It looked cobbled together from different parts, but its appearance hid revolutionary technology. "All systems are green, Captain," said his first officer, Linda Chen. She handed him a tablet showing the final inspection results. "The new drive is stable in all simulations." Sam nodded. Pride swelled in his chest. The Pathfinder's engine was unlike anything the Council races used. Earth scientists had taken a completely different approach to faster-than-light travel. Instead of warping space in a bubble as alien ships did, the human drive created temporary tunnels through spacetime. The theory suggested it would be faster and use less energy. "The blockade patrol passes this sector in 30 minutes, Linda reminded him. "If we're going to slip past them, we need to move soon." "Tell the crew to prepare for departure," Sam ordered. Below the ship, Earth glowed blue and green. Ancontakalk. Vessels orbited at strategic points, maintaining the quarantine imposed years ago. They were large and powerful, but their patrol patterns had become predictable. Sam and his crew had studied these patterns for months, identifying a small window of opportunity. The Pathfinder lifted silently from its hidden dock on the far side of the moon. Its conventional engines pushed it gently away from lunar orbit. For 15 minutes they drifted, appearing like just another piece of space debris. Then, at precisely the right moment, they activated their stealth systems, another technology developed in secret. "Blockade ships are exactly where we predicted," reported Nathan Jones, the ship's sensor officer. "We have a 7-minute window." Sam took a deep breath. "Engage the FTL drive." Engineers and scientists in the engine room watched nervously as the new drive spun up. Blue light pulsed through transparent conduits along the walls. The ship hummed with energy. "Creating tunnel in 5 seconds," announced Dr. Olivia Benson, the chief science officer. Her hands moved quickly over the control panel. 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the window stretched into lines. There was a moment of pressure, as if the air had thickened, and then a strange calm. Through the window they saw not the blackness of space but a swirling blue corridor of light. "We've done it," Olivia whispered. "We're traveling faster than light." The crew cheered. Sam allowed them this moment of celebration before raising his hand for quiet. "We've only just begun," he reminded them. "Our mission is to explore beyond Council space and find allies and resources for Earth." For 2 weeks, the Pathfinder traveled through uncharted space, far beyond the Council's territory. They discovered strange phenomena and beautiful sights that no human had ever seen. Finally, they approached a star system marked on their charts as uninhabited but viable. The star was smaller and redder than Earth's sun. It had 4 planets, and their sensors showed the second one had liquid water and an atmosphere humans could breathe. "The Council database we accessed before leaving calls this planet Novus," Linda said. "It's listed as uninhabitable by Council standards, whatever that means." "Let's find out for ourselves," Sam decided. The Pathfinder entered orbit around Novus. From space, the planet looked promising. Blue oceans, green and purple continents, white clouds. Scans showed abundant plant life and animal species, but no signs of advanced civilization. Sam led the first landing party himself. They touched down in a clearing surrounded by tall trees with silver bark. The air smelled sweet, like cinnamon, and oranges mixed together. Gravity was slightly less than Earth's, making everyone feel lighter on their feet. "Spread out and take samples," Sam ordered. "Stay in radio contact and don't touch anything that looks dangerous." Olivia set up her portable lab and began analyzing soil and plant specimens. Nathan used a drone to map the surrounding area. Linda kept watch, her hand near her weapon, though they hadn't seen any large animals yet. On the second day of exploration, everything changed. Nathan's drone spotted unusual structures about 5 miles from their landing site. "They appear to be buildings," he reported, showing Sam the images. "Simple ones, but definitely artificial." "The Council database said this planet was uninhabited," Sam said, frowning. "The Council seems to be wrong about many things," Olivia replied. They approached the structures carefully. As they got closer, they saw a village of about 30 dome-shaped buildings made from local materials. And there were people, not humans, but clearly intelligent beings. The aliens were about 5 feet tall with skin that shifted colors like a chameleon. They had large, expressive eyes and 4-fingered hands. When they noticed the humans, they didn't run away in fear. Instead, they approached cautiously, communicating with each other through soft whistling sounds. Olivia stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show she carried no weapons. "Hello," she said, though she knew they couldn't understand her. "We come in peace." One of the aliens, wearing decorative stones around its neck, approached her. It touched its chest and made a musical sound. "Viridian." Olivia smiled and touched her own chest. "Human." This simple exchange began humanity's first independent alliance. Over the next few days, using a combination of pictures, gestures, and patience, they learned the Viridian's story. Long ago, the Galactic Council had discovered them. After studying their development for a short time, The council decided they were developing too slowly to be worthwhile members. Rather than help them advance, the council simply categorized their world as uninhabitable and abandoned them. "They just left you here?" Sam asked, once they had developed enough shared language to communicate basic ideas. The lead Viridian, who had taken the name Melody in human speech, made a sad whistling sound. "Council wants only those who think like Council. We think differently." "You think differently too, yes?" Sam nodded. "Yes, that's why they rejected us too." Before the Pathfinder left Novus, they established a communication system with the Viridians and promised to return with more people and resources. This wasn't just a discovery of another world. It was proof that humans could build relationships the Council had failed to nurture. Meanwhile, back on Earth, another breakthrough occurred. Dr. Paul Martinez and his team at Luna Base deciphered ancient star charts found in ruins on Mars. These charts, left by some unknown visitors to the solar system long ago, showed routes to dozens of star systems, many ignored by the Council. "These could be places the Council doesn't know about or doesn't care about," Paul explained to Admiral Jane Howard during a secure briefing. "Either way, they represent opportunities for us." Jane studied the holographic map with growing excitement. "How many of these systems might support life?" "At least 15 based on our analysis," Paul replied. "And some of the symbols suggest ancient settlements or resources." Jane smiled. "The Council thought they could contain us by cutting us off from the galaxy. Instead, they just forced us to find our own path." As the Pathfinder journeyed home with news of the Viridians, humanity prepared for its next step into the stars. Earth had been cast out, but that rejection had only made humans more determined to succeed on their own terms. 28 years had passed since Earth's rejection by the Galactic Council. What began as a desperate quest for survival had blossomed into something remarkable. Humans now called it the Network, a growing alliance of 17 human colonies and 7 alien species, all operating beyond Council control. The colony of New Terra served as the diplomatic center of this alliance. Its buildings blended Earth architecture with alien designs, creating something unique. Governor Kate Summers walked through the central plaza, admiring how far they had come. Humans and aliens moved together in harmony, trading goods and ideas freely. "Governor, the delegation from Viridian Prime has arrived," her assistant said, hurrying to keep pace with her. Kate nodded. "And the Arcturian representatives?" "Already in the meeting chamber." "Ambassador Kahl seems nervous." Kate wasn't surprised. Kahl had taken an enormous risk 20 years ago when he secretly contacted Earth and offered his help. As one of the few Council members who had opposed Earth's exile, he had provided valuable information about Council weaknesses and blind spots. Now, his people wanted to officially join the network, breaking away from Council rule. Inside the grand meeting hall, Kate greeted the colorful assembly of representatives. The Viridian skin shifted through rainbow patterns, expressing their excitement. The 4-armed Quarians gestured expressively as they spoke with human scientists. In the corner, 3 Moldovan trade ministers hovered above the ground on gravity discs, examining a holographic display of new shipping routes. "The Council can no longer ignore what we've built here," said Ryan Peterson, Earth's chief diplomat. He projected a map showing network territory, a growing bubble of space extending from Earth in the direction opposite from Council territories. "They've doubled their patrol ships along the border," reported Admiral Lisa Bradley. Her uniform carried the insignia of Earth's new space fleet. "Our scouts have detected unusual activity in 3 sectors." Before they could discuss further, alarms sounded throughout the colony. A communications officer rushed into the room. "Governor, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Vulcan's Forge." The main screen lit up, showing Joe Carter, the engineering director of humanity's largest shipyard. His face was tense, smoke visible in the background. "New Terra, we are under attack. 3 Council warships appeared without warning. They're demanding we surrender the facility and claiming we're in violation of Council law." The screen went dark. Kate turned to Admiral Bradley. "How fast can our ships reach Vulcan's Forge?" The Phoenix can be there in 6 hours at maximum speed, Bradley replied. But the Council ships will do significant damage by then. Governor Summers faced the assembled representatives. The Council has finally made their move. They believe we'll be easy to defeat because we're scattered. They're wrong. She turned to her communications officer. Activate the defense network, all of it. Throughout network space, hidden relay stations powered up. This was the secret project humans had been working on for years. A system of faster-than-light communication and automated defense platforms. The technology was far beyond what the Council possessed. At Vulcan's Forge, the Council commander was giving the humans 30 minutes to surrender when alarm signals blared on his bridge. Commander, his sensor officer called out. Multiple energy signatures appearing all around us. Outside, 20 unmanned defense platforms materialized from FTL jumps. Each was small but heavily armed. Before the Council ships could react, the platforms fired warning shots across their bows. The commander received a transmission from a human voice. Council vessels, this is Rear Admiral Ben Taylor of the Network Defense Force. You are in network. Territory without permission and have committed an act of war. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately. The Council commander laughed. We don't recognize your network. This is Council space, and you are in violation of quarantine. Surrender now or... His words were cut off as the defense platforms fired again, this time disabling the engines of all 3 Council ships with precision strikes. On the main Council ship's bridge, screens showed the arrival of a human vessel, unlike any they had seen before. The ESV Phoenix was sleek and powerful, clearly built for both speed and combat. This is your final warning, Admiral Taylor's voice came again. Withdraw or be destroyed. The Council ships, unable to maneuver and outgunned, had no choice but to accept defeat. As they were escorted to the border, news of the confrontation spread throughout both network and Council space. On the Council capital world, emergency meetings were called. Reports flooded in from border regions. Several minor species under Council rule had begun requesting membership in the human network. They had seen how humanity treated its allies as equals rather than subjects. The Council speaker, a successor to Zithrax named Verax, pounded his fist on the table. How has this happened? They were supposed to be contained. An intelligence officer displayed images of network technology. Humans have developed along different technological paths than we anticipated. Their FTL drives use principles we haven't explored. Their weapons are designed differently. Most concerning, they've created an instantaneous communication system that allows their scattered colonies to act as one. But the quarantine was perfect, protested another Council member. Kahl's replacement, an Arcturian named Selvin, spoke quietly. Perhaps the quarantine was the mistake. By isolating humans, we forced them to innovate. By rejecting them, we gave them something to prove. 2 days after the incident at Vulcan's Forge, the Council requested a formal meeting with network representatives. They chose a neutral space, stationed at the edge of disputed territory. Ryan Peterson led the human delegation. He entered the meeting chamber with confidence, remembering how differently Frank Collins had been treated in this same room nearly 3 decades earlier. The Council representatives waited, their postures stiff with pride and worry. Verax spoke first, his tone carefully measured. The recent misunderstanding at the facility you call Vulcan's Forge is regrettable. There seems to have been confusion about territorial boundaries. Peterson smiled slightly. There was no confusion. Your ships attacked a network facility in network space. The Council does not recognize your network or your claimed territories, Verax said sharply. Earth remains under quarantine by Council decree. All human expansion is illegal. Peterson placed a data crystal on the table. It projected a map showing network territory and Council space. These are the facts as they exist today, not as you wish them to be. The network includes 17 human colonies and 7 allied species. We have our own technology, our own trade routes, and as you recently discovered, our own defenses. You cannot build an empire in defiance of Council law, another representative shouted. Peterson's response became legendary, repeated in schools. across network space for generations. We asked for friendship and you gave us exile. We will not now surrender what we have built in your absence. The Council threatened military action. Peterson simply activated another display, showing the full network defense grid, hundreds of platforms and dozens of ships positioned to protect every network world. We don't want war, Peterson said calmly. We want recognition and respect. The network is willing to establish diplomatic relations with the Council as equals. Nothing less will be acceptable. As the Council representatives huddled to discuss, Peterson stepped outside the chamber. He contacted Governor Summers on New Terra through his secure network link. They're afraid, he told her. Not of our weapons, but of the idea we represent. Every species they've ever encountered either joined the Council on their terms or remained primitive. We've created a third option. And that threatens everything they've built, Kate replied. The question is, what will they do about it? Peterson looked back at the Council members still arguing among themselves. I think they've already lost even if they don't know it yet. The network offers something the Council never could, true partnership instead of submission. That idea has power. No fleet can match. 5 years passed since the confrontation at Vulcan's Forge. An uneasy peace existed between the network and the Council. Neither side wanted war, but neither would give up their position. The network continued to grow, adding new colonies and welcoming more species who chose to leave Council control. On the distant planet Osiris, archaeologist Dr. Maria White carefully brushed dust from an ancient stone tablet. Her team had been excavating ruins for 3 months. What they found changed everything they thought they knew about galactic history. Look at this, Maria called to her assistant. She pointed to symbols carved into the stone. These match the writing we found on Mars, but they're more complete. Her assistant, a young scientist named Carl Wright, scanned the tablet with a handheld device. The computer says this is at least 50,000 years old. Maria nodded. And look at these images. She traced her finger over carvings showing strange ships and star patterns. I think these are technical diagrams, not religious symbols. Over the next few days, Maria's team uncovered more tablets and artifacts. Working day and night, they pieced together an incredible story. The ruins weren't just ancient buildings, they were the remains of an advanced technological civilization that had spread throughout the galaxy long before the Council existed. We need to get this information to network headquarters immediately, Maria said, carefully packing the most important discoveries. At the same time, on a space station near Council territory, intelligence operative Eric Nelson was meeting with a Council scientist who wanted to defect to the network. The scientist, Dr. Vren, belonged to one of the founding Council races. He looked nervous, constantly checking to make sure no one was listening. You must understand, Dr. Vren whispered. The Council has been lying for centuries. The technology that made us powerful, our faster-than-light drives, our energy systems, our medical advances, none of it was developed by us. Eric leaned forward. What do you mean? The Council's founding races discovered ruins, much like the ones your archaeologists are finding now. They reverse-engineered the technology without understanding the principles behind it. For generations, we've simply been copying ancient designs, not truly innovating. Dr. Vren handed Eric a data crystal. These are classified Council records. They show the real reason Earth was quarantined. The Council was terrified of humans. Because we're aggressive? Eric asked. Dr. Vren shook his head. No, because you're innovative. In just a few decades, humans developed technology that took Council races centuries to accomplish. Worse, you actually understand how your technology works. You improve it. Council species don't do that. We maintain what we have, but we rarely advance. Eric studied Dr. Vren carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because the Council is stagnating. Many of us believe that working with humans may be our only hope for real progress. When Eric and Dr. Vren arrived at New Terra, they were immediately taken to meet with Governor Kate Summers and Admiral Lisa Bradley. At the same time, Maria White and her team arrived from Osiris with their discoveries. In a secure conference room, Maria displayed the artifacts her team had found. These ruins were built by a civilization we're calling the predecessors. They existed at least 50,000 years ago and had technology far beyond even what the Council possesses. She showed images of the Mars charts alongside the new discoveries. The star charts we found on Mars were created by the predecessors. They had mapped hundreds of worlds before they mysteriously disappeared. Dr. Vren examined the artifacts with amazement. These match symbols in our oldest Council records. The founding races must have discovered similar ruins. Eric presented the information from Dr. Vren's data crystal. According to these records, the Council races didn't develop their technology. They found it and copied it. But they never truly understood how it worked. Admiral Bradley frowned. Are you saying the Council's technology is all stolen? Not stolen, Dr. Vren corrected. Discovered and repurposed, but without understanding the scientific principles, they couldn't improve on it. They could only replicate it. Dr. Diana Scott, the network's chief scientist, had been quietly listening. Now she spoke up. This explains something that's been puzzling us. Our FTL drive works differently from the Council's, but it's actually more efficient. We developed it from basic principles rather than copying existing technology. She displayed a comparison of network and Council ship designs. Council ships haven't changed significantly in 300 years. Their design is stagnant. Meanwhile, we've gone through 5 generations of improvements in just 30 years. Governor Summers leaned back in her chair, taking in this information. So the Council feared us not because we're aggressive, but because we might surpass them. Exactly, Dr. Vren said. Humans solve problems in ways Council species don't. You experiment. You take risks. You question established methods. The Council saw those traits as dangerous. They still do. News of these discoveries spread throughout network space. Scientists began studying the artifacts with renewed interest. On planets throughout the network, researchers looked for more ruins left by the predecessors. But the most significant impact came from comparing network and Council technology. Diana Scott led a team that verified what Dr. Vren had claimed. The network's independently developed FTL drive was indeed more efficient than the Council's version. Network ships could travel farther and faster while using less energy. As this information leaked into Council space, many worlds began to question Council authority. If the Council had been dishonest about the origins of their technology, what else had they lied about? Several border worlds opened secret communications with the network, exploring the possibility of joining. On New Terra, Eric Nelson met with Ryan Peterson to discuss the political implications. The Council is facing internal pressure like never before, Eric explained. Some member species are demanding access to network technology. Others want to establish independent research programs instead of following Council scientific doctrine. Ryan nodded. We should use this opportunity, but carefully. We don't want to cause a collapse that leads to war. What do you suggest? Eric asked. We offer knowledge exchange programs with any Council world that wants to participate, regardless of their political status. We make it clear we're not trying to break up the Council. We're just sharing information freely as we do with all our allies. This approach proved effective. Within months, scientists and engineers from dozens of Council worlds had enrolled in network universities and research centers. They returned home with new ideas and perspectives that spread quickly. The Council leadership tried to stop this flow of knowledge, but it was too late. The idea that there might be better ways to develop technology had taken root. Council member species that had been content to follow for centuries began to question and explore. Admiral Bradley met with Governor Summers to discuss these developments. It's strange, she said. We didn't defeat the Council with weapons. We defeated them with ideas. Kate looked out her window at the busy streets of New Terra, where humans and aliens from many worlds work together. The Council thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, it forced us to think differently. That became our greatest strength. Network intelligence soon reported that several Council species were secretly developing their own research programs, independent of Council oversight. The foundation of Council authority, their technological superiority, was crumbling. The Council is facing a choice, Ryan Peterson told Earth's leadership during a secure briefing. They can fight a losing battle to maintain control, or They can adapt to a new reality where they're not the only power in the galaxy. And which will they choose? Asked President George Bell. Ryan smiled slightly. Based on their history, they'll fight change until the very end. But that end is coming, whether they accept it or not. 60 years had passed since Earth's rejection by the Galactic Council. What began as humanity's desperate attempt to survive isolation had transformed the galaxy. The network now included over 40 star systems and 15 allied species. Earth itself had become a center of education and innovation, with universities and research centers attracting brilliant minds from hundreds of worlds. On the Council capital world of Centauri Prime, trouble was brewing. The Grand Council chamber, once a place of order and control, had become a scene of constant argument. Representatives from dozens of member species shouted over each other, demanding changes to ancient policies. "Order! I demand order," called Council Speaker Garadex, pounding his ceremonial staff against the floor. Unlike his predecessors, Garadex faced a council in crisis. More than a dozen worlds had already left to join the network. Others threatened to form their own alliances if reforms weren't implemented. The sharing of technology must be unrestricted, demanded the representative from Praxis 3, a world known for its engineering expertise. The old ways of limiting scientific knowledge are destroying us. "We must open diplomatic relations with the network," called another. "Their medical advances could save millions of lives on my world." Across the chamber, traditionalists argued for stronger measures against what they called human contamination of galactic culture. Some even called for military action to break up the network and force its members back under council rule. Behind closed doors, the council's military leaders delivered grim news. "We lack the strength to defeat the network in direct conflict," the Supreme Commander admitted. "Their technology has surpassed ours in key areas. Worse, many of our own forces secretly admire what humans have built." Far from the political chaos on the network world of Haven, the aging Frank Collins watched children playing in a park. Some were human, others belonged to various alien species. They played together without concern for their differences. Frank smiled at the sight. At 97, his hair was white and his movements slow, but his mind remained sharp. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said a familiar voice. Frank turned to see Admiral Jane Howard, now 95, approaching with the help of a walking cane. Though her body showed the effects of age, her eyes still held the same determination they had 60 years ago. "I was just thinking about that day on Centauri Prime," Frank said, "when they rejected us and sent us home in disgrace." Jane laughed softly. "Some disgrace. Look what it led to." They sat together on a bench, two of the few remaining humans who had witnessed both humanity's lowest moment and its greatest triumph. "The Council's falling apart," Jane said. "Our intelligence suggests at least 7 more worlds will leave and request network membership this year." Frank nodded. Not with a bang but a whimper, as the old poem says. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. Jane's grandson, Commander Will Howard, appeared on Frank's communication device. "Grandfather Admiral," Will said, his expression serious. "The Council has requested an emergency meeting with network leadership. They're saying it's of the highest importance." 2 days later, a delegation of network representatives gathered on New Terra. President Doug Peters of Earth led the group, which included leaders from every network member species. At 93, Frank Collins had been asked to join as a special advisor, the last active diplomat who had witnessed Earth's original rejection. The Council sent a delegation led by Speaker Garadex himself, along with representatives from 20 key Council worlds. It was the highest-level meeting between the two powers since the confrontation decades earlier. "We thank you for agreeing to this meeting," Garadex began formally. The Grand Hall of New Terra's government center was filled with dignitaries and media from across known space. President Peters nodded. "The network welcomes dialogue. What brings you to New Terra with such urgency?" Garadex looked uncomfortable. "Recent events have forced the Council to reconsider many long-held positions. Internal conflicts threaten the stability of many worlds. We face challenges that cannot be solved with our traditional approaches." Frank Collins, seated nearby, caught the hidden meaning. The Council was admitting, in their roundabout way, that their system was failing. How can the network assist? President Peters asked carefully. Garadex took a deep breath. We propose a fundamental restructuring of relations between our civilizations, not as dominant and subordinate powers, but as equal partners in ensuring galactic stability. A murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Network leaders exchanged glances, some suspicious, others hopeful. Please elaborate, President Peters said. What followed was extraordinary. The Council proposed a new galactic structure, not the network joining the Council nor the Council joining the network, but the creation of a new entity that would incorporate elements from both systems. They called it the Galactic Concordat. Under this arrangement, Garadex explained, all species would maintain their sovereignty. Technology and scientific knowledge would be freely shared. Military forces would be maintained separately but would coordinate for common defense. Trade routes would be open to all members. Network representatives listened carefully, asking questions and suggesting modifications. The discussions continued for days. Some council representatives resisted certain provisions, while some network leaders remained suspicious of council motives. But the momentum toward agreement grew stronger. On the fifth day, Amanda Wells, Network's chief diplomat, presented a final draft of the Galactic Concordat. The document combined the best aspects of both systems, the Council's experience in managing relations between diverse species, and the network's commitment to innovation and equal partnership. We have an opportunity, Amanda told the gathered leaders, to create something better than either the Council or the network could achieve alone. A true galactic community where all species can flourish. When the time came to sign the Concordat, Speaker Garadex asked for a special concession. There should be a place of honor for the one who witnesses both the beginning and end of this journey. All eyes turned to Frank Collins, who had been watching from his seat. With Jane Howard's help, he made his way to the signing table. 60 years ago, I stood before the Council and asked for Earth to be admitted as a member, Frank said, his voice thin but clear. Today I see something far greater taking shape. Not Earth joining an existing power, but all of us creating something new together. One by one, representatives from both the Council and the network signed the historic document. When the ceremony concluded, an important question remained. Where would the headquarters of this new Galactic Concordat be located? The Council capital has served as the center of galactic politics for 1,000 years, Garadex noted. President Peters nodded. And New Terra has been the heart of the network. Both would be logical choices. Jane Howard, watching from nearby, stepped forward. If I may, she said. There is another option. All eyes turned to her as she continued. The world where this all began. The planet that was cast out, forced to find its own way, and in doing so changed the galaxy forever. Frank smiled, understanding immediately. Earth. The decision was made. Earth, once rejected and isolated, would become the center of a new galactic order. The planet that had been deemed too dangerous to join galactic society would now lead it into a new era. As the delegates departed, Frank and Jane stood at a window overlooking New Terra's capital city. Buildings of human and alien design stood side by side under a purple evening sky. Do you remember what Kal whispered to you that day on Centauri Prime? Frank asked. When we were being expelled? Jane nodded, the memory still clear after all these years. They fear you not for what you've done, but for what you might become. He was right. Yes, Frank agreed. But even he couldn't have imagined this outcome. Earth had been cast out by the Council. In response, humans hadn't just survived. They had built an empire based not on conquest but on cooperation and innovation. And in doing so, they had transformed the galaxy itself.